And we're live. I am still waiting for, oops. I'm still waiting for my other video that I was planning on premiering today to process. I'm not sure why it's taking so incredibly long to process my video, but it will be up at some point. It's going to be a Friday Reads video. It will be premiered. I will be in the chats, but I thought since I've changed the time from 7 o'clock Eastern to 7:30 Eastern to 8 o'clock Eastern, I thought, you know what? I really want to chat with everyone. So why not do a live? Because I wanted to share with you in any event some of the new books that I've collected in the first half of the year. So I am going to okay. So that's what we're gonna do. Please forgive me. I'm gonna continue to look at my phone because that is where the processing is apparently happening. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if we get something at 8 o'clock. So if you are watching, please know that the chat is open and I'm pretty active in the chats as well. So I would love to hear from you in the chats. Okay. Hello, Sarah. Yes, it's going to be a nonfiction book haul. And hey, Shay with the Hobbies. Nice that you're here. Thank you very much. It's always lovely to watch your lives and to participate. All right. So I've got 6 titles, and the first set of books have a bit of a backstory. So I'll be doing a little bit of story time. The first 3 are part of the Emergent strategy series by Adrienne Marie Brown and other collaborators. Adrienne Marie Brown is many things. She is a thought leader. She is an activist. She is a creatrix. She is a writer. She is a magic woman. She is a podcaster. She's just a very interesting, talented, and powerful individual. And I first found out about Adrienne Marie Brown several years ago because she was one of the co-editors of Octavia's Brood, which she co-edited with the lovely and brilliant and powerful and creatrix Walida Imarisha, who I've interviewed twice on this channel. Octavia's Brood is a collection of social justice-oriented speculative fiction written by people of color. And it was inspired by Octavia E. Butler's writing. And of course, Octavia's Brood is an homage to Lilith's Brood, which is the Xenogenesis series, which we are actually going to be reading and starting in September with the Octavia E. Butler slow read. So please feel free to learn more about that series and read with us if you're interested in it. And so I met Adrienne Marie Brown sort of through her writing. And then a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago now, I learned that she'd written another book, this one called Emergent Strategy. And this is a book for social justice oriented individuals and people who are interested in creating change in the world. And she wrote this book based off of the lessons in Octavia E. Butler's work, in particular, the parables, but not just the parables. And I had the pleasure, and it was a pleasure because she's lovely, but I had the pleasure of participating in her first series of workshops in Detroit. And it was an incredible, thank you, baby. It was an incredible experience. And one of the things that I learned about her work is that it's so incredibly collaborative. And I just got to meet some really wonderful, gorgeous, smart and very creative people. And it was just a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it. So following Emergent Strategy, there have been a lot of different books that she has supported, that she's come out with, and I picked up a few that I'm going to tell you about today. And I consider these books to be part of my Afrofuturism practice, and that's because they envision that they are designed for people who are interested in envisioning a new way of being, a new world, justice for Indigenous folks, Black folks, people of color, queer folks, folks living with disabilities, folks living in poverty, and I think that when you really think about Afrofuturism, African futurism, and the speculative generally, the key question in any speculative work is what if? What if we had different structures? What if we loved differently? What if our spiritual practices were different? What if? And for anybody who's interested in reading nonfiction speculative work, I think Adrienne Maree Brown is definitely somebody you might want to consider. So I'm going to share with you a couple of the books that I got from her series. So they're all quite small. They're thin. She writes in a way that is really accessible. And she writes in a non-linear way, so you don't have to read the books cover to cover. So the first one in the Emergent Strategy series that I want to talk about is called Holding Change: The Way of Emergent Strategy, Facilitation, and Mediation by Adrienne Maree Brown. And I'll just let you know that it's blurbed by a lot of different activists. I'll read the description. Facilitation and mediation skills are important for both individuals and organizations. How do we practice them in ways that align with nature, with pleasure, with our best imagining of our future? How do we attend to generating the ease necessary to help us move through life's inevitable struggles? How do we practice holding each other without losing ourselves? Black feminists have answers to these questions that can serve anyone working to create changes in our world, great and small. Holding change attends to coordination, to conflict, to being humans in right relationship with each other, not as constant state, but as an ever-evolving dynamic in which we must involve ourselves, shape ourselves and each other. This crucial book is based on Brown's 20 plus years of facilitation and mediation work with movement organizations. So that is Holding Change. And as an example of some of the chapters, we've got a section called Black Feminist Wisdom, a section called Facilitation and Mediation, Fractal Mediation, Intentional Adaptation Mediation, Nonlinear or Iterative Mediation, Transformative Justice, and Creating More Possibilities. So this is actually, it's interesting. I didn't know anything about this book when I purchased it, but the more I learn about it, the more I think this is actually going to be very helpful to me in my legal practice. And also, it's, when I think about Booktube as a community, there are a lot of conversations that we are trying to navigate in the Booktube community. And I think as I read this, I want to use it as a way for me to enter into dialogue with other Booktubers and readers in the community to address some problematic trends that are in our community that I think we need to shape ourselves away from. So that is the first book. It's called Holding Change. And Sarah, as you're on this, I'm thinking about you and about your work I think you do psychotherapy. And I think that there's work in here that will be, like, I just opened it to a chapter called Stay Black and Breathe by Alexis Pauline Gumbs, who's incredible. So you might be interested in this. And also Shay, in terms of your work, I believe you do work in, I want to say, is it tech or programming? Anyway, might be interesting to you. Hello, Emily. Thank you for joining. Okay. The next book is part of the Emergent strategy series. They all have this logo, this pink title bar with white letters. And this one is called Undrowned. It was, let me just make sure that my video is still processing. It's still at 0. I'm beside myself. I don't know why that is. So this one is called Undrowned, Black Feminist Lessons from Marine Mammals, written by Alexis Pauline Gumbs, whose work I really appreciate. And I'm going to read the back of this. So, and I'll tell you, the reason I'm interested in this one is because it's emergent strategy, also because I love Alexis Pauline Gumbs, and also because I love dolphins and have had the opportunity to swim with them in the wild several times, and it was just a very transformative experience for me. They're one of my favorite animals and the animals that I work with. So Undrowned is a book-length meditation for the human species based on the subversive and transformative lessons of marine mammals. Alexis Pauline Gumbs has spent hundreds of hours watching our aquatic cousins. They are queer, fierce, protective of each other, complex, shaped by conflict, and struggling to survive the extractive and militarized conditions humans impose on the ocean. With a brilliant mix of poetic sensibility, naturalist observation, and Black feminist insights, she translates their submerged wisdom to reveal what they might teach us. The result is a powerful work of creative nonfiction that produces not a specific agenda, but an unfolding space for wonder and questioning. The use of metaphor and natural models in the service of social justice make Undrowned an absolutely unique read. So I'm just going to pick a page and I'll read this part here. There are a few theories as to how the Baikal seal ended up in Siberia in a lake far away from all their other saltwater seal relatives. Some say 500,000 years ago, they were separated from the other seals by expanding and contracting ice sheets. Some say there is an underground channel into Baikal Lake, the deepest lake in the world, that no one has seen. What is for sure is that the Baikal seal has adapted to fresh water with glistening black grace, round and shining. They have 2 extra liters of blood, which allow them to breathe underwater long enough to mate underwater, scientists guess, because no one has seen them. They are the only mammal in the lake ecology and are now indispensable to their interspecies community. Sometimes I wonder how I got here too. How did I change to learn to breathe here? What did I lose? What would I be like if there never was a break between me and those on the other side of the passage? And is it enough, this one deep lake, for all the life I have to live? The Baikal seal, Russian name Nerpa, reminds me that right where I am connected to all, and the blackness of me, glimmering like stars, communicates in all directions, and the roundness of me, sleek as blubber, is Earth herself, fully embraced by a Black universe. And please remember that I love you no matter what happens between us, no matter what took me from you or you from me. Across the continents of ice, this lake has deep and loving boundaries, and I am so fully held and nourished. You can trust that I am where I need to be. Alexis Pauline Gumbs' writing is amazing, and it is also extremely powerful to hear her read. I love that this book, while that it's creative nonfiction, it is, using the devices of fiction to really amplify and to add texture to the things that we see in the everyday, in the mundane. So that's super exciting. And then the last one, this one is We Will Not Cancel Us and Other Dreams of Transformative Justice. This was also by Adrienne Marie Brown. I love the size of it. It's very sweet. So Cancel or call out culture is a fraught topic these days, originating as a way for marginalized and disempowered people to address harm and take down powerful abusers, often with the help of social media. It is seen by some as having gone too far. But what is too far when you're talking about imbalances of power and patterns of harm? And what happens when people in social movements direct our righteous anger inward at one another? In We Will Not Cancel Us, movement mediator Adrienne Maree Brown reframes the discussion for us. Sorry, hold on. I was trying to keep my video on. Okay. In We Will Not Cancel Us, movement mediator Adrienne Maree Brown reframes the discussion for us in a way that points to possible paths beyond our impasse. Most critiques of cancel culture come from outside the milieu that produce it, sometimes even from its targets. However, Brown explores the question from a Black, queer, and feminist viewpoint that gently asks, how well does this practice serve us? Does it prefigure the sort of world we want to live in? And if it doesn't, how do we seek accountability and redress for harm in ways that respect our values? Again, another really important little book, profound in its context, little in its size. I think that this is a conversation that's been happening on Booktube as well. What do you do when someone's harming you? Do you just get out of relationship with them? Do you try to find a way to foster a new relationship? Do you set up boundaries? Like, what do you actually do? And then how do you do that in movements and communities? So I'm looking forward to that discussion. Okay. Now I'm very excited to talk about a very popular book, and that is Hood Feminism by Mikki Kendall, Notes from the Women That a Movement Forgot. I actually met Mikki Kendall while she was in the process of writing this, I believe, at the WizCon convention, which is a feminist science fiction convention. And it was really lovely to meet her and to just watch her be. she's quite incredible. And so I'll read the back here. Today's feminist movement has a glaring blind spot, and paradoxically, it is women. Mainstream feminists rarely talk about meeting basic needs as a feminist issue, argues Mikki Kendall. But food security, access to quality education, safe neighborhoods, a living wage, and medical care are all feminist issues. All too often, however, the focus is not on basic survival for the many, but on increasing privilege for the few. How can we stand in solidarity as a movement, Kendall asks, when there is the distinct likelihood that some women are oppressing others? In her searing collection of essays, Mikki Kendall takes aim at the legitimacy of the modern feminist movement, arguing that it has chronically failed to address the needs of all but a few women. An unforgettable debut, Kendall has written a ferocious clarion call to all would-be feminists to live out the true mandate of the movement in thought and in deed. You've all heard about hood feminism. I'm particularly interested in this because I work with white women, and I want to be more nuanced in my relationship building with white women across, in particular, differences in race and also differences in sexual orientation and relationship orientation. And I think, again, this is kind of like a syllabus for Booktube. I do think that given the fact that the majority of Booktubers are women and majority are white women, and given the fact that the largest Booktubers are white women, I think that if we are going to be having a conversation as like a broader community, I think that it's important that we skill up in our ability to talk to each other. Not that I intend to have any kind of conversation with white women in Booktube about Booktube, but I think what I might learn here will not only assist me in terms of my own personal growth, but it will assist me in finding ways to kind of understand some of the dynamics that happen on our platform as a community. So there's Hood Feminism, which if you haven't read, I would suggest you read. I'm going to leave the one that I'm most intrigued by till the end. Now this one, I'm extremely proud of myself for finding and proud of myself for purchasing. I don't know when I'm going to read it. I think this is something I need to very slowly read, but slowly read in one go. So I'll need to prepare like maybe a month to read this. This is called The Black Shoals. And the reason I looked for a book like this, and the way I found it was because as a Black queer woman living on Turtle Island and doing work in equity, and also reading Black speculative fiction, and now starting to read Afro-Indigenous or African Indigenous writers like Rebecca Rowanhorse, I realized that I needed to be more mindful and more thoughtful and more educated on the relationship between African peoples and Indigenous peoples to Turtle Island. For me, I haven't read anything that has helped me start to think about that, like the interrelationship between our communities. And in particular, African peoples were brought to North America through slavery and post-slavery, or in the context of slavery or the aftermath of slavery. And I still think we're in the aftermath of slavery. So for those who are like, yeah, but what about people who immigrate like, 2000, we're still in the aftermath of slavery, right? So I think, and I think that there definitely is something to be said about being brought, the interrelationship between being brought here in bondage and enslavement, and also while there's a genocidal project going on with Indigenous individuals, right? Like those things were happening around the same time. And what do we make of that? Like, how do I reckon with that? What does that mean in terms of my own identity? So I was thinking, you know what? I'm sure somebody's written about this and I should read that thing. So that is The Black Shoals, Offshore Formations of Black and Native Studies. Now I'm going to read the back of this and it's exciting. Okay. In The Black Shoals, Tiffany Lethabo King uses the shoal, an offshore geologic formation that is neither land nor sea, as metaphor, mode of critique, and methodology to theorize the encounter between Black studies and Native studies. King conceptualizes the shoal as a place where Black and Native literary traditions, politics, theory, critique, and art meet in productive, shifting, and contentious ways. These interactions, which often foreground Black and Native discourses of conquest and critiques of humanism, offer alternative insights into understanding how slavery, anti-Blackness, and Indigenous genocide structure white supremacy. Among texts and topics, King examines 18th century British mappings of humanness, nativeness, and Blackness, Black feminist depictions of Black and Native erotics, Black fungibility as a critique of discourses of labor exploitation, and Black art that rewrites conceptions of the human. In outlining the convergences and disjunctions between Black and Native thought and aesthetics, King identifies the potential to create new epistemologies, lines of critical inquiry, and creative practices. So I believe that in reading a text like this, I will develop language and a way to enter into fiction, because I read nonfiction in order to educate myself, but I also read nonfiction because it helps me enter into fiction. It helps me analyze fiction and critique fiction. And I think that reading something like this will help me read Afro-Indigenous fiction better. So I'm excited about the Black Shoals. And then finally, I've got a book by Cheryl Thompson. I think it's Dr. Cheryl Thompson, yes. And this was by Dr. Tiffany Lethabo King. I have to remember to be consistent with my honorifics. And I think it's also Dr. Mickey Kendall. So yes. In any event, this is called Uncle, Race, Nostalgia, and the Politics of Loyalty. I found out about Dr. Cheryl Thompson's work because I was a part of the Festival of Literary Diversity in Brampton, Ontario. I was one of the influencers who were selected to talk about the festival this year, which was awesome. So the uncle reference here is Uncle Tom. And if you're Black, you know what it's like. You might know what it's like to be called an Uncle Tom, but you might know what Uncle Tom actually refers to. And it was in my listening to Dr. Thompson talk about Uncle Tom in the context of fiction and movies that I realized I need to read her book. So I'll read the background. And as I do this, think about that. What was that show? Tell me in the chat. It was the Lovecraftian show that, like, Lovecraft Country. And thinking about that, I see connections. Okay. From martyr to insult, how Uncle Tom has influenced 2 centuries of racial politics. Ever since Harriet Beecher Stowe first published her great anti-slavery novel in 1852, the figure of Uncle Tom has morphed from literary hero into lacerating insult, but never once faded from view. Uncle Tom's shape-shifting presence moved off the page and into vaudeville reviews, then movies, radio, television, consumer packaging, advertising, and ultimately politics. In this highly original cultural history, Dr. Cheryl Thompson unpacks the evolution of Uncle Tom, tracing his influence from minstrel shows to Amos and Andy, Uncle Ben, O.J. Simpson, Bill Cosby, and President Barack Obama. In exploring the impact of Uncle Tom on the civil rights movement and contemporary race relations, Thompson offers jarring insights about how pop culture, revisionism, and nostalgia have set the stage for the politics of race and systemic discrimination of recent years. Now, Dr. Cheryl Thompson is an assistant professor at Ryerson University in Toronto. So that's called Uncle, Nostalgia and the Politics of Loyalty. So taken together, I'll stay for a few more minutes in the chat. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The chat has been contemplatively quiet this evening. Let me know If you've read any of the books I've talked about, and I know that 14 of you are here, so just as a recap, Uncle, Hood Feminism, We Will Not Cancel Us. I should probably say the author, sorry. Undrowned, Holding Change, and The Black Shoals. So those are my books, my nonfiction books. If you're here, please like the video. I would appreciate that. But I'd also love to answer any questions that you might have about the book and about the about reading nonfiction. And if there aren't any questions, then I'll just go. If you're here because you saw the advertisement for the premiere at 8 o'clock, it is still processing, and I'm not sure at all why it's taking so long for this video to process. I might have to delete it and do it again. So like my phone still says, I don't know if you can see. Anyway, it's been processing at 0% for a really long time. I'm going to have to do something else. Maybe I'll have to do it from my laptop. I don't know. Maybe tonight there will be another video. I hope so. Thank you for the likes. Okay, so glad you loved that. Glad you enjoyed Sarah, Hood Feminism, Emily. Great. Thank you. I'm glad you find them interesting. And if you read any of them, please come back to this video and leave a comment to let me know what you thought of them. Yeah, and AZ41. Yeah, I know a lot of people are reading Hood Feminism and that it's on the syllabuses of courses like around the world. So I'm very happy that Mickey Kendall, her book is doing so well. That's awesome. You're welcome for sharing. I'm glad they all sound good. And is there any kind of nonfiction I won't read? Probably. There's tons of nonfiction I won't read. It's probably easier to say what my interests are, like what my focus might be. And my focus right now would be like I like biographies, but all biographies of people who have some relationship to Black speculative fiction. So I have a biography for Nichelle, the woman who played Uhura. So I want to read her autobiography. I have a lot of nonfiction about Octavia E. Butler. I have nonfiction about Harriet Tubman. I'm just looking at my shelves. I read nonfiction about Afrofuturism and Black speculative fiction. I read nonfiction that helps me learn more about like history, about communities. So because I'm interested in Caribbean science fiction and fantasy, I'm reading the history of Trinidad and Tobago, for example. And these are all very, very, very slow, luxurious reads. So I will rarely sit down and read a nonfiction book, like a history book at least, end to end, because I get bored and need like witches and such. Adrienne, I'm not a nonfiction person, mainly because sometimes it can be too real for me, and generally when I read, I wish to escape, hence love of paranormal, sci-fi, etc. I get that. You've only heard of the Hood Feminism book. Yeah, I get that. I get that. All right, everyone, I'm going to end this live, and I'm going to try and figure out why my my video is not loading, and hopefully I will be back. I don't know what I'm going to do. We'll see. Hopefully I will be able to premiere it later on. Oh, you met Nichelle Nichols very briefly once, and she was so friendly and welcoming. That's amazing. I'd love to meet her. I should reach out to her. So, yes. I haven't had any updates about her life. Let me just see. Yeah, I'll figure it out. Anyway, that is that is it. That is all I want to say for now. Thank you very much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. Remember to read with purpose. And for those who are watching the replay, thank you. And in your comments, please input a stack of books in your comment. And also, please let me know if you're interested in nonfiction, what kind of nonfiction you like to read. I'd love to hear your views. Okay, everyone, talk to you soon, and let me figure out why my video is not processing. See ya.